The combine is creeping closer. NFL free agency, the draft, it's all coming up. Super Bowl's in the rear view mirror. We're done with that. Forget about that. It's Brown season. It's the season of hope. What do we have? Our prospect previews continue. Quarterback and running back, since, well, that's a lot in flux too, isn't it, with the Browns running back position? Let's get to the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Chubb runs, he's to the 10, 15, he's to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb, he's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Chubba Lubba Hub.
It's gonna be sick.
Welcome, everybody. The off-season, it marches on. It marches on. We're looking at the free agent prospect possibilities for the Browns when it comes to quarterbacks. That's, of course, that's coming up first. But really, we want to be looking at the draft. That's the future. That's the hope, right? Whether it's Kirk Cousins that comes in, if the Falcons release him before March, I believe 17, and they can do a Russell Wilson deal where you get the 1.22 mil, boom, pop him in for a year. Great. Is it Joe Flacco comes back? Is it Daniel Jones? Is it somebody? Whoever they get has got to be competent enough to carry the load for a certain amount of time. Now, it depends. If you get a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders, you'd think that maybe you don't need a veteran quarterback to carry you the whole season, depending how things progress, of course. If you get a more raw prospect or unknown, maybe you do want for the full season, if not longer. Make sure you're clicking notifications on for the channel. Click subscribe. We're good, folks. I'm telling you, you do not want to be missing, whether you're a Browns fan or otherwise. You do not want to be missing my and this program's NFL draft previews, free agency. We're diving deep. We already got a couple nice episodes up, preview and prospects. You want to be a part of this. So click the notifications on, share, leave your comments. Also on X, on Twitter, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. You can just listen to us too. If you don't want to look at me, you can just listen to the audio. And on Instagram as well, at AndyMCSports. So like I said, we'll be looking at and following as free agency gets closer. Nothing new on the Myles Garrett trade front. Both sides kind of dug in. Will they trade? Won't they trade? If they do, what does that look like for the Browns, etc.? Running back wise, Nick Chubb. Are the Browns going to sign Nick Chubb before free agency? I wouldn't think that there's a market for him. Like, people are not going to be clamoring for a 29-year-old running back coming off of foot surgery after coming off of horrific knee reconstructive surgery, right? It's not going to be a clamoring for Nick Chubb. So I would hope, at least for a bit of good PR, because God knows the Browns could use it. You sign Nick Chubb, he'll be agreeable to come back, I'm sure, like he was last year. Whatever, maybe a minimum, and just lace it with bonuses, right? And have him go from there. Still means you need to draft another one. Still means you need to fill out that, especially with running back coming back into vogue. And hopefully the Kevin Stefanski system that we knew and loved, that did have a focus on the run that was so successful, coming back in. And one of our favorites on the show to help us break these type of things down when it comes to prospects and dive deep and get into the video side is Coach Lance Reisland from Cleveland.com, from the Cleveland area. Longtime coach, and breaks all these prospects down. We love having you on, Lance. How are you, buddy?
Andy, how are you? Thanks for having me, my friend.
Well, it's a good time to be talking draft and prospects because of how damn cold it is outside and all the snow. It's, my God, it's terrible. So we'll get rolling. We'll get rolling with this, man. It's let's start with the quarterbacks, because last time we had you on, we talked Shedeur Sanders. We showed the good, we showed the bad. Since then, it looks like maybe Shedeur and Dion could be favorable to Cleveland. We don't know. We talked a little bit about Cam Ward as well. Just quick before we get into the next phase of quarterback, anything, and I won't say new because we haven't seen him play, but coming out of the Senior Bowl, anything from Shedeur Sanders that has altered your mind positively, negatively towards him, and if he's a good fit for the Browns?
Well, I've said it from day one when I started breaking him down. I think he's a great fit for the Browns. Just simply, he's really, really good within structure, right? So he can make all those throws within structures, off play action. He's very good at processing information. One of the things that people don't give him enough credit for is how tough he is and how well he processes information. He took a pounding at Colorado, and they threw the ball all the time. Now, the good thing is he's coached by Pat Shurmur, so he does a lot of things in terms of the high lows. He understands what he's looking at, how he's doing it. And the thing that's calmed down, I think, a little bit is the worry about Dion. And Shedeur's his own man, and he will be his own man, and his dad will obviously, like most fathers, will help and want the best for his kid. But that seemed to have died down a little bit in terms of will he micromanage Shedeur? It doesn't look like that. Like I said, I've always been high on Shedeur. Just a simple fact, it looks like Stefanski's getting the keys back. So if he's getting the keys back, this is a play action guy. This guy will be good. He can process information. He understands. He's been around a circus his whole life. He'll be he'll be able to handle, being an NFL quarterback from the media aspect of it. So I think it's a great fit. I think it would be a great pick at number 2 for the Browns.
Yeah, seemed well spoken and a level-headed guy on those Super Bowl week media row. Something we haven't heard a lot about is Cam Ward, and this is when the combine is really going to come into play as that next level. February 24 to March 3rd. We'll be watching that and probably have you on again after that, Lance, to kind of break down more of the prospects. So you got Cam Ward, Shedeur, still considered the top 2 tier, but there's a couple others that come to mind. Now, I've been on the show, Lance, I've started the phrase, say no for Milroe. I don't want him. I want nothing to do with him, so I don't want to even talk about him. I don't want him. No thanks. I do want to talk about my guy who I have written. I'm going to write on the sticky note from the draft day movie, Will Howard, no matter what. And another former Buckeye quarterback, Kyle McCord. Let's start with him because there's that next level down. And of course, for Buckeyes fans, the last time we saw Kyle McCord, Lance, wasn't looking too good.
Well, I will say this. I like both quarterbacks, but if you're asking me who I think is going to be a better pro, and I think a lot of people have opinions on, who's going to be good and who's not going to be bad. And, at the quarterback position, there'll be a guy who's going to be good, who not many of us think is going to be good. And there's going to be a guy who flops, who we're all pretty high on. So that's just the nature of the NFL when it comes to breaking out quarterbacks, because there's that it factor. Now, with Kyle McCord, the thing I like about Kyle McCord is his ability to drive the ball from 15 to 25 yards. And what I mean by that is in the NFL, you have so many of those over-under routes. You have so many high-lows. You have so many things in the middle between the hashes. And he seems to be able to process that information very, very well. He makes all the throws. And what I mean by that is he is not he's not throwing it deep all the time. He's not throwing it behind the line of scrimmage. He's not throwing it in the middle. He really does a lot of different things in terms of angles of throws. Now, the thing that, hurts him, he's not really good off platform, right? So he's not this Patrick Mahomes. He has to have a good pocket. But within structure, within a Stefanski offense type of guy, if the Browns go a different route, this is somebody to look at on the third day, just because of his skill set. He could deliver the ball, those NFL throws, those digs, those comebacks, those bang 8 routes in the middle of the field. He can throw those with great velocity. It'll be really, like a lot of these guys, his pro day, things like that are going to be very, very big for Kyle McCord.
Yeah. And certainly again at the combine, which is the next steps. And rightly or wrongly, guys' draft stock rises and falls based on, we've talked about Kyle McCord is not the most athletic compared to some of these other quarterbacks. But hey, there's worse things than being comfortable in the pocket, wanting to be that pocket passer and can run the play action. Now, like I said, last time we saw McCord in Ohio State, not too good. I was pretty happy to see him go. Then he goes to Syracuse, big year, big numbers, guys rising. And I think too, Lance, what people sometimes forget is these are college kids. So to see, even if it's like one great year, if it's at the end, that's fine because you're still growing. It's not like the NFL side where it's a guy's a 6-year vet and he's going to get his next contract and he has the one contract year and you have to avoid it. If someone has a good year, they're growing. That can be a positive there. So what did you make of McCord and maybe how he changed and grew as a quarterback from his last Ohio State year to his time in Syracuse?
Well, I think you said it best. They're young kids too, right? So not only are they maturing on the field, but they're maturing on what they do off the field, how to take care of their body, meetings, what's important to them. Do they see an NFL future, things like that. So, when you're at Ohio State, it's such a circus. It's really, really hard. So he played really, really well, except for against Michigan. He didn't have a great game. But if you look at what he did last year, he did a lot of really good things. He made a lot of really good throws, threw for over 3,000 yards. It wasn't like he was a flop at Ohio State. For some reason, it just didn't fit. And the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry has really hurt Ohio State in terms of, their preparation for that game. Obviously, you see the talent level of Ohio State. They ran through, 4 blue bloods in the playoffs, but that Michigan game has really entered their brain and how they affect, like how it affects how they call the game, how they play the game. So the thing I've seen about McCord from his time at Ohio State, that's why Will Howard's such a breakdown, is that a hard breakdown for me is that McCord was at Syracuse where he didn't have the supporting cast. And you see, when you don't have the supporting cast, you have to be really, really solid in your reads, really, really solid in your placement, his anticipation, his accuracy. Those things have to be elite when you're not at a place that has elite players. And that's what makes Will Howard, even though Will Howard's really good, for me, it's a really hard breakdown just because of the skill around him. I thought Kyle McCord handled him. I thought he did well what he did well at Ohio State. He throws the ball well from the pocket. He throws that ball very, very well from 15 to 25 yards. He drives it downfield very well. He processes information very good. Like I said, he anticipates, very good ball placement, allows his guys to run after catch. I just think he progressed as a player. I think he would have done a lot of these things at Ohio State this year as well. People asked me, I was actually asked yesterday, yes, I think Ohio State could have won the national championship with Kyle McCord. I have no doubts about it because of the sporting cast.
And it can't be a direct apples to apples comparison either, Lance, between McCord's time and Will Howard, because also different play callers, right? You had Ryan Day for McCord. Maybe that wasn't a fit, to Chip Kelly with Will Howard. So that's another different dynamic, different style, of course, of play call. And maybe it was just hey, this fit better with a Will Howard. So let's bring up, we got Kyle McCord growing. And I'll make one, I want to get your thoughts, one thought after we look at some Will Howard stuff here. But Will Howard, this is a guy, Lance, who he was at Kansas, came over, was thought to be like, the hired gun. Is he a Buckeye? Whatever that means, right? And so coming in, you have the stinker in Michigan, could have folded. But this, Lance, what stood out to me the most was that since that guy didn't put his head in the sand, I think he became more of a leader. I think he became more decisive, more energized, more motivated, and on the brightest stage, the brightest lights. This guy didn't flounder, man. He stepped up, made the plays, and I think showed some Josh Allen-isms as far as physicality, big arm talent potential. And let's face it, we have to remember, Josh Allen coming out, and I'm not saying it's going to be Josh Allen, but Josh Allen coming out was as raw as it could be in 2018, the Baker draft. It was, this guy's going to boom or this guy's going to bust, and it depends so often where you land. But Will Howard, I think, has those raw tools and that size.
Well, like I said, the thing that's really hard to break down Will Howard, you're going to see in a couple of clips, is that, when you have great players. Now, I'm a big Chip Kelly fan. I think Chip Kelly is a fantastic play designer. But what Chip Kelly does more than anything else, and it's what all really good offense coordinators do, is that he has the right guys touch the football. And when the right guys touch the football, good things happen. When the right guys at Ohio State touch the football, that's really, really good, right? So there's two things that make it really hard for me to break him down. All those things you said about him are absolutely true, and he played fantastic. But when you break it down from a quarterback perspective, the questions I would have for Will Howard is, first of all, can he drive the ball in that 15 to 25 range? That's why I have McCord over him right now. Very, very close, though. Because at Ohio State, he throws the ball so much behind the line of scrimmage, and he throws the ball vertically. But he doesn't have to drive it. It wasn't asked of him, so it's not that he can't do it. I just haven't seen it enough. So it's not one of those things. I do think he has the arm talent to do it, but can you make those throws under pressure, understanding the coverage you see and where the holes are? Those are things that I've seen from Kyle McCord. Those are things I have not seen from Will Howard, play after play. When you have Jeremiah Smith and Buka and Carnell Tate, and you have these guys who can vertically beat you, and you throw the ball. Now, did he make great reads? Absolutely. Did he understand the offense? Absolutely. But that would be my only question, is can he drive the ball into tight windows in the middle of the field? Because when you watch a lot of it, it's behind the line of scrimmage or it's vertical. And those are things that will be tested in the NFL, because he's not going to have the guys running free vertically or have the guys behind the line of scrimmage when, the Oregon game we throw. It's great read. It's a run pass option, but you didn't have to do a lot. And, there's once again, it comes down to being a game manager, and that's become a negative thing. That's not a negative thing at all. That's a great thing. If you're a game manager, and Ohio State, his job was to get the ball to those great playmakers, and he did a great job of it. Now, at the next level, he's going to have to drive the ball in small windows across in the middle of the field. Can he do it? We'll see. But I don't know that yet, but it seems like he has that skill set to be able to do that. That would be my question coming in is, how is he going to be when everybody around is equal, which is in the NFL, everybody's really, really good.
Right. And I think, too, that is something else for Browns fans and just football fans in general to watch at the combine. You can't hang your hat on everything there, but there's going to be the drills, Lance, where he's going to be throwing those intermediate passes and pass routes to the outside, to the inside. And so we're going to get a little bit of a taste. Again, if he screws up, it's not the end of the world. If he does great, it doesn't mean he can do it in the NFL. But at least then we'd be able to test and see a little bit as far as, all right, on a few drills consistently, what does it look like? And let's take a look at, Sammy, if you can pull up the first clip here, something good Will Howard's going to do. Take us through it here, Lance.
What you're going to see here is just, you're going to see right when you watch this, you're going to see Jeremiah Smith's on top of the screen, and he's going to come underneath. And it's a run pass option, so they're going to pull the guard tackle. Then Jeremiah Smith's in man coverage, so Will Howard. Now, it's just a 5-yard throw. The good is he understands it on a run pass option where he's got to get to. The bad thing for him, maybe, as he's trying to get ready for the NFL, is he doesn't have to do a lot. And those would be the two things you really, really look at when you're scouting a quarterback. It's a great decision, pull the ball, throw the ball, but you don't have to do a lot, and you only threw it 3 yards, but you get the credit for the touchdown pass. So that's a fine line, and that's what makes it hard. Some of his eval tough because he throws a ton of these, which are great decisions, not hard throws.
Right. And again, in a game in the NFL, that can, of course, if you're able to make those and have the offense work with that, what that can do is open things. It's like an extended run play to a degree. Then it can open things up potentially downfield. So you have to be smart. You make that connection. Now, something that it wasn't if you pull up the next clip here, Sammy, wasn't necessarily a mistake, but something you weren't necessarily positive on.
Well, this is a smash. It's high-low, very common route in the NFL. And you're going to see that corner's his read. That corner drops. And so he should really throw to the flat route. Now, he's got Jeremiah Smith, so he throws it up. Now, it's great placement. It's Jeremiah Smith, where only Jeremiah Smith can get it. So, but in the NFL, this won't happen. This guy won't be open. And in once in a while, you will do that. But this will be a bad decision when he's getting graded. Now, it's great execution, and there's a difference, right? So he executed through a great ball, but in the NFL, this could be an interception. And the reason it could be an interception is because there's two guys there. And even though he's taken that, there's a lot to be said, hey, throw to your best player. And I'm not always against that either, because sometimes you got to do that. And maybe he was told to throw that. But in the NFL, that's got to be a check down to that tight end in the flat. Get you, now it's 2nd and 3, which in the NFL, you have to keep those sticks moving. So great throw. Threw it to their best throw. Throwing it to your best player is never a bad option for me. Chip Kelly maybe said throw this regardless of what you see. You don't know any of those things. But if I'm a scout watching that, I'm going, why did he not throw the flat route? And now if his answer is, hey, I was ripping at Jeremiah Smith because we needed a play, that's a good answer. That's a good answer for me.
Right.
And if he says anything, I didn't see the coverage, those would be alarming. But if he just says, you know what, if he wasn't automatically double covered, I was ripping it to him, I'm good with that answer, because the best players, you don't win with coaches, you win with players. So get it to your best players. And if that's the answer, then I'm good with that. Yeah.
And also, Chip told me to throw Jeremiah Smith. Okay. You're doing what you're told. That's good also. And when I saw that play, and boy, there was some pretty throws and pretty placement that he had one to Egbuka back in the there's one in the regular season, another in the playoffs. Just it was beautiful. NFL pro placement there. And my mind gets to go at Lance. Okay, who on the Browns? And you said, look, hey, not his fault. He had great players to play with, but you were able to benefit. But I was thinking to the Browns, boy, wouldn't that look nice? You throw a jump ball to David Njoku, high school, high jump champ. That would look pretty good. Cedric Tillman, 50-50 ball guy. That would look good. Jerry Jeudy can get on up too, depending on what the coverage is. So you have that ability, and you have that. But I'm with you. The difference is going to be, you can make the big play, you can make the check down. How does it look when it can be a little crowded over the middle? How fast can you decipher, and how fast can you read and go through your progressions when you're Will Howard at the NFL level, when you're going to have those disguised defenses coming at you?
Well, and if you look at it, so the Tillman and Njoku, those are great examples of 50-50 balls. If it's one-on-one, what you get worried about is if he's throwing into coverage where there's multiple guys there, because when you throw to Jeremiah Smith, you're throwing to on a scale of 1 to 10, Jeremiah Smith's a 12, and then at the college level, he's going to face guys even if they're really, really good. Those guys he's facing are 6, 7, 8s at best. Now there's an occasional corner that'll be a 9 or 10. So in the NFL, he now becomes a 10, and everybody else becomes a 10. Now you have to make those good throws, and you have to make good decisions. And a lot of guys, there's a lot of guys, and that comes down to that it factor. Maybe he makes those throws and he gets it. But I'm a numbers guy, and the numbers tell me, like on that last play, hit the check down, be 2nd and 3. Because in the NFL, it might be a great play, but it also might be a pick, and you got to protect the football. So yes, there's a lot of things he does really well, and he did nothing but help himself in those last 4 games. Obviously accuracy, but a lot of the things you had mentioned in terms of his demeanor and how he carried himself and how he, a lot of really good things. It'll come down to, there's going to be, it only takes one. There's going to be a coach out there that thinks just like you do and says, you know what, I'm going to give this guy a shot for all those things you said. And there's going to be a guy who feels like I do with McCord because he drives the football. And all you need is one guy to believe in you. And then you get into a system that you like. You get into a system, there's not a Jaden Daniels out there. Well, who knows that? Really, no one knows that. Jaden Daniels played great. He had a great defense. He did a lot of really good things. You saw with Caleb Williams struggle a little bit, doesn't have a great defense. There's some things that go into it. There's a lot of outside factors that affect how successful a quarterback is that are out of his control. And to say that a guy can't be successful, then why is it 50%, accuracy rate of developing quarterbacks or understanding quarterbacks? Yeah. I had last year, I don't mind putting myself out there. Last year, I did not have Bo Nix being very good as an NFL quarterback. He was outstanding. Me neither. And he was outstanding. So it just goes to show you, is it experience? Is it the system? Is it people around you? There's a lot of things that tie into that. And I think Will Howard has a lot of those things. The thing that he's lacking for me, he just hasn't done yet. It doesn't mean he can't. Maybe he can't, but maybe he can.
Yeah. And that physical ability too. He can run. He's durable, big. Can we at the Browns? Can we get a big dude, please? 6'4", 230, whatever he's going to max out. Yes, that's what you need. That's AFC North football. Come on, right? Like that's beautiful. You have that, but you're so right, Lance. It's landing spot, because what if Caleb Williams went to Washington? Does he have a different year? What if Jaden Daniels went there? Was totally with you on Bo Nix. I thought he was very ordinary, but Sean Payne said, that's my guy. And you know what? When people say, oh, such and such is a reach, it's not a reach if it works. And it worked for the Denver Broncos, and it was the guy, and they had it. But if Bo Nix goes 10 other places, Lance, maybe he falls into the category that we thought he would. It's so important to where you end up.
Well, it's crucial, right? So my ultimate for that one is a guy who I loved when I was younger, Tim Couch, when he got beat up with the Browns. Yeah. You take those, when you're an expansion guy and you get hit, or if you look, you cannot constantly get beat up, and you got to have players around you, and you got to have the system, and you got to have the belief. And like I said, it only takes one. That's what the combine is for me. Now, going back to what you said about size, I would say that was overrated until I started going down to Browns practice 3 years ago. When you stand right next to those guys and you see how big they are, the size comes in and just survival ability to be able to survive 17 weeks with those guys hitting you. They're such big guys and so fast. So that ties into it. For me, I work backwards though. The combine stuff has got to match the film. There's so many people that go the opposite way. I want guys who are productive. I want guys who make plays. I want guys who have shown they can make the throws or make the runs or make the whatever it may be. And then that, obviously a guy who's 5'10" can't play, right guard, in the NFL.
Yeah.
But if a guy's dominant and then all of a sudden he goes to the combine and that matches, he's 6'5", 310. Now you start, for me, it works the opposite way. Obviously there's a size and speed and natural gifts you have to have, but there's a fine line between that and production as well. That's why Puka Nacua is who he is, right? The film has to match what you see at the combine, not the other way, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. Because you can train now for the combine drills. Like that people make business off of that. My buddy, a host on ESPN radio in Philadelphia, Josh Hennig, friend of show, he said he interviews a guy all the time who's part of his business is training you for the combine drills. So that doesn't mean you're great at your position or football, but you are great at those drills, which help you get drafted. So that's all part of it. I'm with you. You got to match. Those things have to mesh up. And the combine gives me something to think, hey, I liked it or I didn't like. Let me go back and watch a little bit more. Does it match up and do that? So I'm totally with you there. Let's talk running backs here, because we all want Nick Chubb to return to form. We love Nick Chubb. 29, does he come back? I hope so. But you need fresh blood. You need new legs back there. And this is looking like a really good running back class. Let's take a look at a couple. You know what? Let's start with the 2 Ohio State ones. As we got Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, who both look like they, like right now and again, the combine can trade things, change things. What are we thinking? Early round 3 type of deal? Maybe sneaking around 2, like for those guys?
Well, I actually have Henderson as my number one back, and I can explain that as we go. And just because of what I think he can be, I have Junkins in my top 10. I'm not as high on Junkins as some are, just because of his straight line speed. Once again, it could be proven wrong. There's a great example of, all right, if he runs low 4.3, 4.3s area, and then you go to the film, you're like, all right, then he shoots up, and that's where the combine comes in for me. But I have Henderson as my number one now. Where is that at in this day and age? The running back with Henry and obviously Saquon Barkley, they've brought the running back over the last couple of years. So for me, Henderson's explosion, his ability to catch the ball in the backfield, he's outstanding at blitz pickup. He's a 3-down back. He's a natural ball catcher. I mean, he doesn't let it into his chest. And when he's healthy, he's as explosive as any back in the country. I think Genty he's my number 2, and I think he could be a generational talent. But it's weird because Genty, to me, because of his violence, that scares me when you play in the NFL, just the amount of hits you're going to take. He's a guy who seeks contact. And for me, the only really negative I have on Genty, and he could end up being the best back if things work out, is the fact that how many hits can you take? How much tread do you have on a tire when you run that style in the NFL? There's been a guy like, Henry's been a guy that runs like that, but he's also 250.
He's huge. And like 6'1",
yeah. So there's something to be said about just what you love about Ashton Genty is what worries me going to the NFL. He's a guy who breaks tackles and pushes piles, and those guys don't have a long tenure in the NFL just because there's so much tread. So, like I said, that's why I have Henderson where he's at. Now, Junkins is the guy, I loved him at Ole Miss. I didn't love him as much as Ohio State, but once again, what those guys did for each other, they lessened the tread, right? So they didn't get beat up because they both rushed for 1,000 yards. They didn't maximize with 30, 40 carries a game. So again, I like the idea that they're not worn out. I like the idea that there's a lot more, a lot more bullets in the chamber with those guys per se, right? They have a long way to go. But Junkins, when I want to see him run the 40, if his 40 is really good, he'll jump right up there in the top 5 as well,
and pop up there. And that's why back a few years ago, it was like, stay away from Alabama running backs, right? Like the Trent Richardson, because all the tread's off. They just pound him into the ground before they even get to the NFL. Gente's only 5'9", by the way, folks, weighing in at 215 pre-combine. That's the other thing. Is he 5'9" or is he 5'8"? Is he 215 or is he 205? That's what the combine sort of helps out. What about Omarion Hampton? 6 feet, 220 pre-combine time, and looks like his 40 time is in the 4.46-ish range that's mapped out.
Well, I have him as my number 5. Todd McShay absolutely loves him, and I was watching a thing with him yesterday just because I have a lot of respect for McShay and how he looks at backs and looks at people. So the thing about Omarion Hampton, first of all, he's just a guy, and what I mean by that is he's a guy who likes to play football. And you can question some guys if they like the money or if they like playing football. Omarion Hampton likes playing football. He's big, he's physical. He's multi-talented in terms of he can run the gap scheme. He can run the counter scheme. He can run the zone, inside-outside zone. He's very good, again, very much like Travion Henderson, very good run after catch. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He's a 3-down back. I don't think he's as good in pass protection as Travion Henderson. That's why I have Henderson 1. But you can't go wrong with these. Like you said earlier, this is a really deep class. I have a couple of guys that I have higher than other people. But Hampton is a guy who's number 2 on most people's boards behind Genty. I am at 5, but again, a guy who can be really, really good at the NFL level. We'll see how he runs and things like that. But really talented guy, very, very versatile, great contact balance, short area burst, all that stuff everybody talks about with backs. He has it all. But I just like it because he looks like he likes playing football out there, and that's important to me.
Yeah, and of course, the other factor is pass protection. How good are you at it? And then even if you're not, the willingness. And it sounds like Hampton would be a willing guy to learn since he loves the game. We saw a guy like, let's say, Kenneth Gainwell stymied a bit in Philadelphia because not the best in pass protection. So that's where that becomes a big factor too. You want to protect the quarterback. If you're going to be a 3-down back, you got to be able to protect the QB. One guy I want to get your thoughts on, who I love, and I've been tracking I won a college football fantasy league 2 years ago, and I tracked this guy, and Lance, Ollie Gordon II, Oklahoma State Cowboy. This guy, my gosh, he's my running back version of Will Howard. I want the Browns. I think you can, right now, I think you can get him in the 4th round, probably. Maybe the combine shifts that. He's being compared to a right out of college Kareem Hunt. He's got burst. He can catch. I think the Cowboys had a horrible year last year. So I think that sort of got him a little bit out of the spotlight. He had tremendous 2023, but that's somebody, again, I think you can get maybe end of the third, beginning fourth round. And at least to start as a committee, I think Ollie Gordon has a ton of potential. I want to get your thoughts on him.
Ollie Gordon and Devin Neal out of Kansas are two guys that are there. You're going to get so much bang for your buck out of those guys. They're really, really good. And the reason they're, like you're saying, is their versatility, right? They can play all three downs. They catch the ball very well out of the backfield. These are guys that it's the paralysis by analysis, right? You keep watching these guys and you keep trying to find things that are wrong with them. And everybody's going to have something that they need to work on. But Ollie Gordon's a guy who's been tremendously productive, great contact balance. He's a very good zone runner. Now, gap is a little bit different, and there's only a few guys who have shown that can do both. Very good zone runner, like I said, very good short area quickness, burst, breaks tackles very well, great contact balance. He's a guy that, the more you watch, the more you like. And it's the same with Devin Neal, who I just absolutely, the way you feel about Ollie Gordon is the way I feel about Devin Neal, but it's the same kind of thing. No, very versatile, does a lot of different things, can catch the ball out of the backfield. Not only can these guys catch the ball out of the backfield, but these guys can actually line up in the receiver. And there's a difference between a guy who can catch and a guy who can play multiple positions. And that's what these guys can do too. They can line up in the slot and actually run some receiver routes. So very high on those guys. Once again, it shows you the depth of the running back class, because there's a lot of guys who won't even get picked in the draft that'll have very successful NFL careers, because that's how deep this class is.
Yeah. And depends, of course, on system too. What are you? Are you committed? You standalone guy? One more for you, Lance. Is there any other running back? Because I know we got your top two and then a five, and then kind of go through. Is there another running back you want to focus on and tell us about that maybe might be a good fit for the Browns to keep an eye on, or Browns fans to keep an eye on?
Oh, yeah, it's Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. Caleb Johnson is a guy. He is Iowa. First of all, if you go to Iowa, you know how to run zone. You know how to run inside, outside zone. In fact, no one in college football runs it better than they have over the last 2 decades. So you're getting a guy who understands zone concept, which is a really tough thing to learn if you don't run it at a high level and run it consistently regardless of the front, because it's two guys blocking two guys, and there's a lot of it's like a dance, and those guys up front, they'll cut, you could go inside, outside, cut all the way back. He's a guy who does not waste any moment. He's big. He's 225 plus pounds. He's a put the foot in the ground, get vertical, which is kind of what the Browns would think about Nick Chubb at his when he was at his prime. That's really what it was, that downhill. Now, he's not Nick Chubb, and very few guys are, but in terms of style, right? He's going to put his foot. There's no wasted movement. He's also a guy who can run gap scheme. His size allows him to pass protect, but you're talking about a guy who's downhill. And my notes on Caleb Johnson are, and I've said this to you before, he gets me to 2nd and 4. Now, will he break 100-yard, 80-yarders and 60-yarders? I'm not sure he'll do that at the NFL level. But there's a lot to be said about guys who are 220 pounds who put their foot in the ground and get you to 2nd and 4. Because if you're 2nd and 4, you're now in charge as the offensive coordinator, and that's key in the NFL. You saw that with the Browns. The Browns are 2nd and 10 too much, and then now all of a sudden you're asking a quarterback to do things that are out of his realm. So I think for the Browns, whoever's the quarterback, they have to be better on 1st down. Caleb Johnson, maybe not as explosive as Genty, maybe not as he's not as explosive as Henderson. He doesn't do some of these, but if you're looking for a guy who's going to be a 1st and 2nd down back and get you to 2nd and 4, Caleb Johnson's your guy. I love him on film, and I love him for the Browns in terms of if they're going back to what Stefanski likes to do. This is a rotational guy, 1st, 2nd down back. He catches the ball well too. He just wasn't asked to do it a ton at Iowa. But this is a guy who gets downhill on that zone, weak side zone, that will look very, very familiar to Browns fans when Kevin Stefanski was calling plays and Nick Chubb was at his height.
And a little bit bigger guy too, showing 6 feet right now too. So, all right. So Caleb Johnson, we're liking. We like Travion Henderson. This will be a fun draft, and you just hope, Lance, of course, that the people in charge of the Cleveland Browns make the right choices, and that's always the challenge.
Well, you've heard a lot about the quarterbacks, and I agree with that. And you mentioned a really good point about who's going to be the quarterback. Well, a lot about what they have to do with the quarterback is getting the run game going, and that run game will bridge the gap. Everybody talks about what quarterback bridges the gap. For me, it's the run game. The run game bridges the gap, right? It's not the quarterback, because if you can get to 2nd and 4 in the NFL, these guys can all make plays. Jameis Winston opens
up the whole playbook.
Jameis Winston gets in trouble if you're going back to if you go back to a running game and you're going back to Jameis Winston be okay. Why? Because Jameis Winston tries to make too much happen when it's 3rd and long and 2nd and long.
Right.
So the bridge and the gap thing for me comes to they got to improve the offensive line, which it will be improved because they're going back to what they do well. So that'll help them. Yes, they are aging, but they're going to do what they do well now. And they got to improve. They have to improve the run game. They have to get depth at that run gap position and get it to 2nd and 4. And that's kind of what I'm sticking to. And people ask me, what's your ideal? What's the best thing for the quarterback? The best thing for the quarterback is to be 2nd and 4, and they have to do that more often.
Yeah, it's a quarterback that can run play action, make the play when you have to. But you're right, because then at 2nd and 4, Lance, the whole playbook's open. If you're 2nd, 3rd, and long all the time, they know what you're going to do, and then everything starts to snowball. So I'm totally with you. Get back to the run game means the Browns are going to need to load up on tight ends as well. It's just David Njoku right now. You got to rejig that. So a lot of work to be done. Let's have you on again, my friend, after the combine and sort of piece together all the rest and go through more of these quarterbacks and other position groups.
Absolutely. Tight end's a great group. You're right there. Tackle. They got to find a safety. There's some good safeties out there. All those things. I'm 5 to 10 guys deep and look forward to, that 10 to 20 is when you find those guys in the second, third day. I look forward to getting more into those films as well. So I look forward to talking to you after the combine. We should have there's some great tight ends. There's some it's a good draft at a lot of positions.
Yeah. The safety second. Oh my gosh, there's so much to do. Lance, tell people quick before you go, where can people find all your great work? And you break down the film. I love watching your stuff, but tell people where they can find you.
I appreciate that. Everything for me is just at Lance Reisland, LanceReisland, and I'm on X and Instagram.
All right, buddy. Good stuff. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Lance Reisland joining us on the Stadium Mustard Hotline, baby. That's right. Slap it on whatever you want. You want your hamburgers, hot dogs, deli sandwiches, from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth but spicy mustard, rich in taste and tradition. Stadium Mustard is real and organic, not manufactured. No. RFK friendly. It's real. It's good. It's got the zing. And you put on everything. Put on your pork chops. Try it too. Stadium Mustard. But at Brown Stadium, all over Ohio, America, Canada, wherever you can order it. And you're going to want to put that delicious Stadium Mustard on whatever you're eating. Absolutely love it. And love the insight too from Lance Reisland there. So let me know what you guys think. On the quarterback side, the Browns, if you were running the Browns and didn't like the first two or wanted to wait or whatever, and you had to pick between Kyle McCord, former Ohio State of Syracuse, or Will Howard, national champ, who do you got? Who do you have? Who would you take? My only other issue, and Lance makes great points, and again, you can't necessarily directly compare because it was Ryan Day, not Chip Kelly, with Kyle McCord, right? Okay, how much does that make a difference? I maintain it this way. Syracuse did not face the same quality of competition that Will Howard and Ohio State had to face. Did not go on the same run. Some guys don't do as well under pressure, right? And so Syracuse isn't on national TV all the time, isn't a circus, isn't held in the same regard football-wise as Ohio State is. So was that more of a comfort level to Kyle McCord? Not necessarily a knock, but is Will Howard a big game player? And I think he is. That's why I want Will Howard. It depends on his combine. I don't know afterwards if the mocks, no one's talking about him still. He's been out of sight, out of mind to a degree, same with Cam Ward. But for Will Howard, after that combine, after his big arm is tested, after how fast he runs probably in the 40s, is he hitting those intermediate passes that Lance was talking about? Does he go from a 4th, 5th round projection to a 2nd? To a 1st? I'm sorry. If people are putting Jackson friggin' Dart in the 1st round, I'll take Will Howard all day, twice on Sunday, please. Jackson Dart, I wouldn't be furious if the Browns ended up with. The only quarterback I'd be furious if the Browns ended up with as a guy that they thought this is going to be our guy is Jalen Milroe. Because I can't go back and watch the shows. I'm not going to get worked up about it right now. But say no for Milroe. That's all I'm saying. Guy can't throw it. Draft a guy, teach a guy to throw the ball who's a quarterback. Stop it, please. I'm going to lose my mind. But Jackson Dart, also, he looks very average to me. It looks like he's a high-end career backup, low-end starter. I see his ceiling sort of like Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, light. Not that, even to that level. But I like parts of his game. I'm not going to, throw a fit if they take Jackson Dart and thinks, okay. But if you're going to take a flyer, take a flyer on the national champ who was written off with his team, the spotlight on him, stepped up, showed out, made all the big plays. It's not his fault. He has great players to throw to, still had to put the ball in the right spot. And that Jeremiah Smith clip we showed, I could see David Njoku double coverage. Come on, big boy, go up and get it, right? Same with Tillman, same with Judy. But also, he can be smart. And he grew. He grew so much. So if I want to take a chance on somebody who I don't want to start right away, Will Howard is the guy. Will Howard, no matter what. It's going to be on the green post-it come draft day after the draft day movie. That's it for me, man. That's my guy. Again, look, the Browns draft Cam Ward. I'd be fine with that. Shedeur Sanders. I'm coming around more on him as long as Deion stays out of the way. And does he stay out of the way if things don't go well? Very accurate passer. I can get behind that. You know, a lot of different angles. But man, wouldn't that be sweet? If the Browns come away in this draft with Will Howard at quarterback and Ollie Gordon the second at running back, I'm going to be pretty happy. But it comes down to, again, what do you do in free agency? That's going to be a tip-off and give us some clues. You go get Justin Fields. God love him, ex-Buckeye. But boy, guys, he's never going to be able to read an NFL defense. Okay? He's a better Tyler Huntley. Okay? So if the Browns answer Justin Fields, well, he's going to give you four games, and then you have to put the rookie in because people are going to be clamoring for it. Do you get a Kirk Cousins, if healthy, could run the play action? Well, 37, can he go a full year? If healthy, I think he can. What about Joe Flacco? Daniel Jones is a wild card. The free agent quarterback signing for the Browns is going to be the first tip-off of what type of quarterback maybe they're looking towards. Is it someone who can play sooner because of the veteran you got? You need that? Or someone you feel you can park and take some time? Fascinating. And that running back class, too. I like that Caleb Johnson, and Omarion Hampton. Deontay seems I'm with Lance on maybe a little bit too much tread, maybe 5'9", 215, maybe a little bit too much pounding. Is he going to have the longevity? Heck of an athlete, though. But I would take Travion Henderson for sure. Depends where these guys end up going. What do you do? Because the Browns need so much. You need the safety. You need D tackle, probably two. What happens with Myles Garrett? Do you need not one but two edge rushers? That's complicated. You need a running back. Quarterback. Never hurts to have another offensive lineman. Depth at corner. Boy. Oh, yeah. How about linebacker? JOK isn't coming back anytime soon. Could probably use a couple of those. Across the board. This front office, man, Andrew Berry and whoever else is pulling the strings. You got your work cut out for you, and we have no choice but to trust in you. All right. So I want to know, between Will Howard, Kyle McCord, who do you want? What running back do you want the Browns to get in this draft if you had your pick? Leave a comment in the comment section. Subscribe, notifications onto the channel. Share it. X, give us a follow at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81, Instagram at AndyMC Sports as well. All right, very good. Thank you to our guest from Cleveland.com, high school coach out of Cleveland, Lance Reisland, to producer Sammy, to all of you, I'm Andy McNamara. And as always, go Browns!
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.